Online, it's just life now.
Hate speech has changed.
They've had pictures of dead bodies.
No one takes the comments out.
Hate in this country is growing. Last year, there were over 100,000 hate crimes recorded in England and Wales. Incidents have more than doubled since 2013. But how hate is spreading, well, that's changing.
We're now seeing more individuals sharing hate online. The boundaries between extremist groups like the far right and the political mainstream have become increasingly blurred. We're going to take a look at the groups that have been targeted and see what can be done to stop the spread. A hate crime is an act of prejudice or hostility towards any aspect of a person's identity. The majority of hate crimes reported to police are in connection to someone's race, but cases of hate crime relating to an individual's sexual orientation or religion have risen in the last year. One of the most targeted faith groups is the Jewish community. The Community Security Trust, a charity which protects Jewish people in the UK against anti-Semitic attacks, has reported a rise of 82% in online hate crimes over the last 12 months.
I've received a massive amount of anti-Semitic abuse, and it can be low-level things like tropes or insults online, or it can be more high-level things like I've had pictures of dead bodies, dead children.
Miriam is the National Chair of Young Labour, the party's youth wing. It's a role which involves being in the public eye, and it's resulted in her being a target of anti-Semitic abuse online.
It's sort of escalated over the past 3 years, and it went from an occasional thing to being almost every day.
How has the rise of anti-Semitism impacted the communities that you work with?
It makes us feel less welcome in British society. Anti-Semitism has become quite normalised in public life and on social media. There's so much of it now that I think for a lot of people through a lack of education and then also through genuine hatred don't realise that these sort of things are unacceptable.
The faith group which has reported the most cases of hate crime last year was the Muslim community.
Drive Islam out of this country forever!
In March 2019, a far-right terrorist killed 51 people in shootings at mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. The week after the shootings, Tell Mama, a project which records anti-Muslim incidents, reported a 593% increase in hate crimes. One of these incidents was a hammer attack outside this mosque in London.
Just here, we're literally outside it. Suddenly, the whole kind of, your mindset changes. Now you're thinking, how do I keep myself safe? How do I keep my children safe?
Shams, a local imam, has also seen a spike in online abuse.
Online, it's just life now. The kind of comments you attract, they're unbelievable. The biggest challenge is to kind of how do you keep the peace in the midst of all of this hate? And it's fueled, the sentiments, the mindset is developing online.
Shams worries that social media platforms have become breeding grounds for the type of hate he thought he'd left in the past.
Because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and we got to experience racism, like in its rawest form. People coming up to your home, kind of attacking you. So I feel like all of those things have become a possibility again.
It's the LGBT+ community which has seen the biggest rise in cases in recent years. Homophobic and transphobic hate crimes recorded by police have risen by 261% since 2011. Now, LGBT+ self-defence workshops are gaining popularity, and organisers believe it's a response to recent attacks.
I think that's had a direct impact on people signing up and coming along to our classes. We've had year-on-year growth. In fact, we had a 16% increase over the last year.
What do you attribute the rise to?
Sexuality is a very easy target, particularly when there has, correspondingly in the last decade or so, been an increase in rights, acceptance and visibility. And what we're seeing is the flip side of that rise of rights and visibility.
Last year, transgender hate crimes rose by 37%.
Once I presented masculine, the world was an entirely different place. I've been attacked a couple of times, and I just wanted to change something and become more streetwise.
Killian has needed to put these self-defense lessons into practice.
So already I've been in definitely two situations which I was able to divert before they happened because of the training instead of just freaking out.
This group are equipping themselves with the skills to protect against physical attacks. But actually, when it comes to hate crime, many are experiencing abuse online.
A hate crime survey by the anti-abuse charity Gallup found that 8 in 10 people who responded had experienced anti-LGBT+ hate crime and speech in the last 5 years. Facebook and Twitter were the platforms where people were receiving the abuse most often. But 1 in 4 victims said they didn't report the online abuse to anyone. Why?
We still don't feel the police and the communities really has our back, and we have to do something ourselves rather than report it.
Where hate crime comes from and how it's spread has evolved in the digital age. Some of the biggest victims of hate crime, faith and LGBT+ communities, are also the biggest targets of far-right groups. A report by Hope Not Hate, an activist group which campaigns against racism and fascism, say the way far-right groups are spreading hate has now changed.
At Hope Not Hate, we're seeing far-right groups organizing less in a traditional way, so with membership lists and street protests, and more as kind of online communities where people come together from their computer screens.
While the internet has allowed hate to spread more easily, technology could also provide the solution when it comes to stopping it. I'm heading to the Hate Lab in Cardiff University, where they've developed artificial intelligence to help detect hate crime online and alert authorities to it.
Our research focuses on, firstly, collecting data, ranging from 100 million tweets to 1.1 billion tweets. Using different classifiers we build, we track online sentiments around these identities and how disruptive events influence the peak of hate speech on social media.
So is there a link between hate speech on social media and hate crime in the real world?
We find where there are areas where hate speech is quite voluminous, we also see a spike in hate crimes on the street. The tweets online emerge before the crimes offline, but what we can't say is that one causes the other directly. There is an association between the two, there's a relationship between the two. In the past, before social media, if you had a person using hate speech, say in the local pub, it would only spread so far. It would be contained to the group of people you're probably having a drink with in that locale. But social media doesn't respect borders.
They've observed that recent political events in this country have driven hate speech.
In 2019, looking at anti-Muslim antagonistic speech on Twitter, we observed that the largest spike of hate speech was on 24th July 2019, which was the day Boris Johnson formed his government.
We put this to the Conservatives, who said the Conservative Party does not tolerate any form of racism or discrimination. So are online companies doing enough to stop their platforms being used to spread hate?
Of course, social media companies have a responsibility. There are now new bits of legislation that require Facebook, Twitter, for example, to take down posts that have been flagged as transgressing laws within those jurisdictions. But this does force the most vitriolic, the most hateful to other platforms. So they end up going to underground platforms that don't have any protections. So it doesn't actually stop the hate from spreading, it just spreads to a different network.
This is backed up by Hope Not Hate, who are calling for action after they found an increasing amount of online promotion of illegal content and far-right terror on the secure messaging platform Telegram. I reached out to Telegram, but they didn't respond. So what are other platforms doing to stop the spread of hate? Facebook say they've built a team of 35,000 experts and are investing in artificial intelligence technology to prevent hate on the platform. Twitter say they've been getting better at tackling hate online. Using tech rather than relying on reports to Twitter, they are now able to take down more abusive tweets. And the government says it plans to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online and have taken steps towards that by appointing Ofcom to be the online harms regulator. But Hate Lab believes citizens like you and me can stem the spread of hate with positive conversation in the form of counter-speech.
So you need to engage with individuals. You can't just ban them from a platform. That doesn't work. That just displaces the problem to another network. So ultimately we must engage with them on an individual basis, which is why counter-speech and counter-narratives are potentially so powerful.
While social media companies are being called on to do more to stop the spread of hate crime, we as individuals can also have a role to play by challenging the hateful content you might see online.